Question 1. The review process indicates that a critical project is nearing its deadline, and the project lead is requesting expedited approval of the final documentation, suggesting that minor quality checks can be deferred to a later stage. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure best professional practice and regulatory compliance? Option A. Expedite the approval process by performing a superficial review, trusting that the team has followed all necessary protocols. Option B. Approve the project documentation with a note that minor quality issues can be addressed after the product launch. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the project documentation against all predefined quality standards and regulatory requirements before granting approval. Option D. Delegate the final approval to a junior team member who can quickly review the documentation. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the project documentation against all predefined quality standards and regulatory requirements before granting approval. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for efficient project completion with the imperative to adhere to established quality control procedures. The pressure to meet deadlines can tempt individuals to bypass or expedite steps in the review process, potentially compromising the integrity of the final product and exposing the company to risks. Careful judgment is required to identify when a deviation from standard procedure is justified and when it poses an unacceptable risk. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the project documentation against the predefined quality standards and regulatory requirements. This ensures that all aspects of the project meet the necessary benchmarks for safety, compliance, and performance. Adhering to these established procedures is a best professional practice because it mitigates risks, upholds the company's reputation, and ensures compliance with relevant regulations, which in this context would be dictated by the Midea hiring assessment test-specific regulatory framework. This systematic approach provides a verifiable record of due diligence. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to approve the project based on a cursory glance, assuming the team has followed all protocols. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it abdicates responsibility for oversight and fails to verify compliance. It bypasses the essential quality assurance step, potentially leading to the release of a non-compliant or substandard product, which could have significant legal and financial repercussions. Another incorrect approach is to approve the project with a note that minor issues can be addressed post-launch. This is a failure to uphold professional standards and regulatory requirements. It acknowledges potential non-compliance, but defers the resolution, which is unacceptable for critical aspects of a project. Regulatory frameworks typically require adherence to standards before a product or service is released to market, not as an afterthought. This approach prioritizes speed over diligence and risk management. A third incorrect approach is to delegate the final approval to a junior team member without providing them with the necessary authority or comprehensive checklist. This is a failure in management and oversight. It is ethically questionable to place such responsibility on an individual who may lack the experience or mandate to make such a critical decision, and it is a regulatory failure if it results in a lack of proper sign-off according to established protocols. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that prioritizes adherence to established protocols and regulatory mandates. This involves 1. Understanding the specific requirements and standards applicable to the project. 2. Conducting a thorough review against these requirements. 3. Identifying any deviations or potential risks. 4. Documenting all findings and decisions. 5. Escalating issues or seeking clarification when necessary. 6. Making a final decision based on a comprehensive assessment of compliance and risk rather than solely on expediency. Question 2. The analysis reveals that a financial advisor, acting on behalf of Midea's clients, has identified an investment opportunity that aligns perfectly with a client's portfolio goals. However, the advisor also holds a personal stake in the company offering this investment, a stake that was acquired prior to their engagement with Midea. The advisor is considering whether to recommend this investment to the client. What is the most appropriate course of action for the advisor in this situation, adhering strictly to the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines applicable to Midea's operations? Option A. Proceed with the recommendation without mentioning the personal investment, assuming the investment is genuinely the best option for the client. Option B. Inform the client about the personal investment, but downplay its significance to avoid causing unnecessary concern. Option C. Immediately withdraw from advising the client on this specific investment opportunity to avoid any appearance of impropriety. Option D. Fully disclose the personal investment to the client, explain its nature, and clearly articulate how the recommendation is still in the client's best interest, allowing the client to make an informed decision. The correct answer is D. Fully disclose the personal investment to the client, explain its nature, and clearly articulate how the recommendation is still in the client's best interest, allowing the client to make an informed decision. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in managing client expectations and adhering to regulatory disclosure requirements when dealing with potential conflicts of interest. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to inform the client about a potentially beneficial opportunity with the obligation to disclose any personal interest that might influence the recommendation. Failure to do so can lead to reputational damage, regulatory sanctions, and erosion of client trust. The Midea hiring assessment test, in its focus on ethical conduct and regulatory compliance, emphasizes the importance of transparency and acting in the client's best interest above all else. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a full and transparent disclosure of the personal interest to the client, followed by a clear explanation of how this interest does not compromise the professional advice being given. This aligns with the principles of fiduciary duty and the regulatory framework governing financial advice, which mandates that advisors must act with integrity and in the best interests of their clients. Specifically, regulations often require disclosure of any material conflict of interest, allowing the client to make an informed decision. This approach upholds the highest ethical standards and regulatory compliance by prioritizing client welfare and transparency. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed with the recommendation without disclosing the personal interest. This constitutes a serious breach of regulatory requirements and ethical principles. It creates an undisclosed conflict of interest, potentially misleading the client into believing the advice is solely based on their best interests, when in fact, personal gain is also a factor. This can lead to regulatory penalties, loss of license, and severe reputational damage. Another incorrect approach is to downplay or minimize the personal interest to the client. While disclosure is made, it is not presented with the necessary clarity and completeness. This is still a failure of transparency and can be interpreted as an attempt to circumvent the spirit of the regulations, if not the letter. The client may not fully grasp the potential implications of the conflict, leading to a decision that is not truly informed. This approach risks regulatory scrutiny and client dissatisfaction. A third incorrect approach is to withdraw from advising the client on this specific matter without any explanation or alternative recommendation. While this avoids the direct conflict, it fails to serve the client's best interests by withholding potentially valuable information or advice. It also doesn't address the underlying issue of how to manage such conflicts professionally. A professional should aim to manage conflicts transparently, not simply avoid them by abandoning their client's needs. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes transparency, client best interests, and regulatory compliance. When a potential conflict of interest arises, the first step is to identify it clearly. Next, assess the materiality of the conflict. How significant is the potential for personal gain to influence professional judgment? If material, the paramount duty is to disclose the conflict fully and frankly to the client. This disclosure should explain the nature of the conflict and how it will be managed to ensure the client's interests remain paramount. The client should then be given the opportunity to provide informed consent or seek alternative advice. If the conflict cannot be managed appropriately, the professional must consider withdrawing from the situation, but only after ensuring the client's needs are adequately addressed. This systematic approach ensures ethical conduct and adherence to regulatory obligations. Question 3. The performance metrics show a significant upward trend in the value of a specific investment product managed by your team, exceeding industry benchmarks. However, a closer review of the underlying data reveals that a portion of this growth is attributable to a series of aggressive, short-term trading strategies that may not be suitable for all client profiles, and the associated risks were not adequately communicated in initial product documentation. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Continue to highlight the strong performance metrics in client communications and marketing materials, as the product is currently meeting its objectives and the trading strategies are within the firm's general trading guidelines. Option B. Immediately revise client suitability assessments and disclosures to accurately reflect the current risk profile and trading strategies of the investment product, and communicate these changes transparently to all affected clients and relevant stakeholders. Option C. Focus on the positive performance in all client interactions, assuming clients are aware of the inherent risks associated with any investment product and that detailed strategy explanations are unnecessary. Option D. Request the trading team to cease the aggressive strategies to align the product's risk profile with its original documentation, even if it means sacrificing current performance. The correct answer is B. Immediately revise client suitability assessments and disclosures to accurately reflect the current risk profile and trading strategies of the investment product, and communicate these changes transparently to all affected clients and relevant stakeholders. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between achieving performance targets and adhering to ethical and regulatory standards. The need to balance these competing demands requires careful judgment and a robust understanding of the applicable regulatory framework. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes compliance and ethical conduct, which are foundational to maintaining trust and integrity within the financial services industry. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of fair dealing and client best interests, as mandated by regulatory bodies, by proactively addressing potential misinterpretations of performance metrics and ensuring transparency. This approach mitigates risks of regulatory breaches and reputational damage. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on meeting targets without considering the underlying data integrity or potential for misrepresentation would fail to uphold the duty of care owed to clients and the broader market. This could lead to regulatory sanctions, fines, and loss of license. Another incorrect approach that involves manipulating data or presenting misleading information directly violates principles of honesty and integrity, exposing the individual and the firm to severe penalties. Furthermore, an approach that ignores the implications of the performance metrics on client suitability or risk profiles demonstrates a disregard for client welfare, a core ethical and regulatory obligation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the relevant regulatory requirements and ethical codes. When faced with performance data that appears anomalous or could be misinterpreted, the first step is to investigate the underlying causes. This involves seeking clarification, verifying data sources, and consulting with relevant internal departments or compliance officers. The decision should always be guided by the principle of acting in the best interests of the client and in full compliance with all applicable laws and regulations. Transparency and accuracy in reporting are paramount. Question 4. The assessment process reveals a large dataset of candidate responses, including quantitative metrics and qualitative feedback. A junior assessor proposes a method to quickly identify potential issues by sorting the data based on a single, easily quantifiable metric, and then focusing only on the extreme values. This approach is presented as a way to expedite the review process. What is the most professionally sound approach to analyzing this dataset to ensure a fair and accurate evaluation of candidates? Option A. Rely on the initial impressions and subjective interpretations of the data, using the quantitative metrics primarily as a confirmation of these pre-existing judgments. Option B. Prioritize the speed of data processing by focusing on the single most easily quantifiable metric and immediately flagging any responses that fall outside the top or bottom 10% for further review. Option C. Implement a multifaceted analytical approach that involves cross-referencing different data points, identifying patterns and correlations, and investigating anomalies with further context before drawing conclusions. Option D. Sort the data by the number of responses provided by each candidate and focus on those with the highest volume, assuming this indicates greater engagement and understanding. The correct answer is C. Implement a multifaceted analytical approach that involves cross-referencing different data points, identifying patterns and correlations, and investigating anomalies with further context before drawing conclusions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for efficient data processing with the imperative to maintain data integrity and comply with Medea's internal data handling policies, which are implicitly aligned with general principles of data protection and accuracy expected in a professional assessment context. The difficulty lies in identifying a method that is both time-saving and adheres to established standards, preventing potential misinterpretations or errors that could arise from superficial analysis. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the assessment data, focusing on identifying patterns and anomalies that require deeper investigation. This aligns with best professional practice by ensuring that conclusions drawn are based on a thorough understanding of the information, rather than just surface-level observations. It upholds ethical standards by demonstrating diligence and a commitment to accuracy in evaluating candidates, thereby ensuring a fair and objective assessment process. This method respects the integrity of the assessment data and the effort invested by candidates. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately flagging any data point that deviates from a perceived norm without further investigation. This is professionally unacceptable, as it can lead to premature judgments based on incomplete information. It fails to account for legitimate variations or outliers that might have valid explanations, potentially disadvantaging deserving candidates. This approach lacks the necessary analytical rigor and can be seen as a failure to exercise due diligence in data interpretation. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on the volume of data processed, prioritizing speed over accuracy. This is ethically problematic as it suggests a disregard for the quality of the assessment and the fairness to candidates. It implies that the assessment is a mere formality rather than a critical evaluation, potentially leading to flawed outcomes and undermining the credibility of the hiring process. This approach prioritizes efficiency in a way that compromises the core purpose of the assessment. A third incorrect approach is to rely on anecdotal evidence or subjective impressions to interpret the data, rather than a structured analysis. This is a significant ethical failure, as it introduces bias and subjectivity into an objective evaluation process. It deviates from professional standards that require evidence-based decision-making and can lead to discriminatory or unfair assessments. This method fails to provide a defensible rationale for any conclusions drawn. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach data analysis and assessments by first understanding the objectives of the assessment and the nature of the data. They should then develop a systematic plan for reviewing the data, identifying key metrics and potential areas of concern. This plan should include steps for investigating anomalies and validating findings. When faced with deviations, the professional decision-making process involves asking, what is the most likely explanation for this deviation, and what further information do I need to confirm it? This iterative process of observation, hypothesis, and validation ensures that conclusions are robust and defensible, upholding both professional integrity and ethical obligations. Question 5. During the evaluation of a significant increase in the cost of a key component used in Medea's consumer electronics, what is the most appropriate course of action to address this financial challenge while upholding product quality and regulatory compliance? Option A. Reduce the product's warranty period and post-sale support to offset the increased component expenses. Option B. Seal the cost increase from senior management and attempt to absorb it through unquantified internal efficiencies. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of alternative suppliers and negotiate with existing ones, while also exploring minor design modifications that could accommodate more cost-effective, compliant components. Option D. Immediately source the cheapest available alternative components to meet the cost target, without extensive verification of their quality or compliance. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of alternative suppliers and negotiate with existing ones, while also exploring minor design modifications that could accommodate more cost-effective, compliant components. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for cost reduction with the long-term implications of compromising product quality and potentially violating regulatory standards. The pressure to meet financial targets can lead to shortcuts that, while seemingly efficient in the short term, can have severe consequences for Medea's reputation, customer trust, and legal standing. Careful judgment is required to identify solutions that are both financially responsible and ethically sound. adhering strictly to the Midea hiring assessment tests regulatory framework. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough investigation into the root causes of the increased component costs. This includes engaging with existing suppliers to negotiate better terms, exploring alternative suppliers who meet Midea's quality and compliance standards, and assessing whether minor design adjustments could lead to more cost-effective component sourcing without sacrificing performance or safety. This approach aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing due diligence, seeking sustainable solutions, and maintaining a commitment to product integrity. It demonstrates adherence to the Midea hiring assessment tests regulatory framework by ensuring that any cost-saving measures do not lead to non-compliance with product safety, quality, or environmental regulations. Ethical considerations are met by not passing on potential risks to consumers or the company's long-term viability. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately switching to the cheapest available components without verifying their compliance with Midea's stringent quality control and regulatory standards. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it prioritizes cost over safety and performance, potentially leading to product defects, recalls, and legal liabilities. It violates the implicit trust placed in Midea products by consumers and disregards the Midea hiring assessment test's emphasis on quality assurance. Another incorrect approach is to reduce the warranty period or post-sale support to offset increased component costs. This is professionally unacceptable as it directly impacts customer satisfaction and can be seen as a deceptive practice, potentially violating consumer protection laws. It erodes customer loyalty and brand reputation, which are invaluable assets. Ethically, it shifts the burden of potential product failures onto the customer, which is unfair and unsustainable. A third incorrect approach is to conceal the cost increase from senior management and attempt to absorb it through internal inefficiencies elsewhere, without a clear strategy. This is a failure of transparency and responsible financial management. It prevents informed decision-making at higher levels and can lead to a cascade of unmanaged financial pressures. Ethically, it is dishonest and undermines the principles of accountability and good corporate governance expected under the Midea hiring assessment tests framework. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such challenges should adopt a structured decision-making process. First, clearly define the problem and its scope. Second, gather all relevant information, including cost data, supplier capabilities, and regulatory requirements. Third, brainstorm a range of potential solutions, evaluating each for its financial, operational, regulatory, and ethical implications. Fourth, consult with relevant stakeholders such as procurement, engineering, legal, and quality assurance teams. Fifth, select the solution that best balances competing interests while upholding the company's values and regulatory obligations. Finally, implement the chosen solution with clear communication and ongoing monitoring. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are well-informed, defensible, and aligned with professional standards and the specific requirements of the Midea hiring assessment test. Question 6. Compliance review shows that the data analytics team is using customer transaction data for predictive modeling. While personally identifiable information like names and account numbers have been removed, the team is proceeding with analysis on datasets that still contain granular transaction details, including dates, amounts, and merchant types, without implementing advanced anonymization techniques beyond simple redaction. The team believes the data is sufficiently anonymized for their purposes. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure compliance with data privacy regulations? Option A. Allow the team to continue with the current analysis, assuming that the removal of direct identifiers is adequate, and focus compliance efforts on securing the data during transmission and storage. Option B. Immediately halt all analysis using the current datasets and conduct a thorough reevaluation of anonymization techniques, employing methods like differential privacy or k-anonymity, and validate their effectiveness before resuming analysis. Option C. Proceed with the current analysis, but instruct the team to be extra cautious when interpreting results and to avoid any cross-referencing with external datasets. Option D. Advise the team that aggregation of transaction data into broader categories is sufficient anonymization, and instruct them to proceed with analysis on the aggregated data. The correct answer is B. Immediately halt all analysis using the current datasets and conduct a thorough reevaluation of anonymization techniques, employing methods like differential privacy or k-anonymity, and validate their effectiveness before resuming analysis. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for efficient data processing with the stringent requirements of data privacy regulations. The core difficulty lies in anonymizing sensitive customer information sufficiently to prevent re-identification while still retaining enough utility for the intended analytical purposes. Over-anonymization renders the data useless, while under-anonymization risks regulatory breaches and reputational damage. The pressure to deliver insights quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a multi-layered strategy that prioritizes robust anonymization techniques before data is used for analysis. This aligns with the principle of data minimization and purpose limitation, fundamental to data protection laws. Employing differential privacy, k-anonymity, or L-diversity, and then rigorously testing the anonymized dataset for re-identification risks, demonstrates a commitment to regulatory compliance and ethical data handling. This proactive approach ensures that the data can be used for its intended purpose without exposing individuals to undue risk, thereby upholding trust and avoiding potential penalties. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with analysis on data that has undergone only superficial masking, such as simple redaction of names and addresses. This fails to account for indirect identifiers or the potential for linkage attacks, where seemingly anonymized data can be combined with external datasets to re-identify individuals. This approach directly violates the spirit and letter of data privacy regulations, which mandate effective anonymization, not just superficial alteration. Another incorrect approach is to assume that data is anonymized simply because it has been aggregated. Aggregation alone does not guarantee anonymization if the resulting groups are small enough, or if the aggregated data can be linked to other available information. This can lead to inadvertent disclosure of personal information, a clear breach of data protection obligations. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize the analytical utility of the data above all else, leading to the use of raw or minimally processed data for analysis with the intention of anonymizing it later. This is a reactive and high-risk strategy. Data privacy regulations typically require that data be processed and protected from the point of collection. Using sensitive data without adequate safeguards in place, even with the intent to anonymize later, exposes the organization to significant risks of breaches and non-compliance during the interim period. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach. Before any data processing or analysis begins, a thorough data protection impact assessment should be conducted. This assessment should identify the types of data, the potential risks of re-identification, and the appropriate anonymization techniques. The chosen anonymization methods should be validated to ensure effectiveness. If there is any doubt about the effectiveness of anonymization, the data should not be used for analysis, or further anonymization techniques should be applied. Continuous monitoring and review of anonymization processes are also crucial, especially as new analytical techniques or external data sources emerge that could increase re-identification risks. Question 7. Strategic planning requires a careful evaluation of potential market entry strategies. Midea is considering a joint venture in a new territory, and a key aspect of this strategy involves selecting a local partner. The assessment of this potential partner must strictly adhere to the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines specified for the Midea hiring assessment test. Which of the following approaches best aligns with these requirements when evaluating a potential local partner for a joint venture? Option A. Focus primarily on the partner's willingness to accept Midea's proposed profit-sharing model, as this is the most critical factor for a successful financial outcome. Option B. Conduct thorough due diligence on the potential partner, verifying their compliance with all relevant local regulations, and the Midea hiring assessment tests specific guidelines, including their financial stability and ethical business practices. Option C. Prioritize the partner's established market presence and immediate access to distribution channels, assuming their operational integrity aligns with Midea's standards without explicit verification. Option D. Rely on informal recommendations from industry contacts to gauge the partner's suitability, as formal verification processes can be time-consuming and hinder rapid market entry. The correct answer is C. Prioritize the partner's established market presence and immediate access to distribution channels, assuming their operational integrity aligns with Medea's standards without explicit verification. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for market expansion with the long-term implications of regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. Pressure to achieve ambitious growth targets can lead to shortcuts that compromise integrity and expose the company to significant risks. Careful judgment is required to ensure that strategic decisions are not only commercially viable, but also legally sound and ethically defensible. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding and adherence to the Midea hiring assessment test's regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines. This includes conducting due diligence on potential partners, ensuring transparency in all dealings, and establishing robust internal controls to prevent any breaches of compliance. This proactive stance mitigates legal and reputational risks, fostering sustainable growth built on trust and integrity. Adhering to the specified jurisdiction's regulations is paramount, as failure to do so can result in severe penalties, including fines, sanctions, and damage to the company's reputation. An incorrect approach that involves proceeding with a partnership without adequate due diligence on the partner's compliance record would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This demonstrates a disregard for the Midea hiring assessment test's guidelines, which likely mandate responsible business practices and risk assessment. Such an oversight could lead to association with entities engaged in non-compliant activities, thereby implicating Midea in regulatory violations. Another incorrect approach, such as overlooking potential conflicts of interest within the partnership structure, would also be a serious ethical lapse. This could undermine fair competition and create an environment ripe for corruption or preferential treatment, directly contravening principles of good corporate governance and ethical business conduct expected under the Midea hiring assessment test framework. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly identifying all relevant regulatory requirements and ethical considerations pertaining to the Midea hiring assessment test. This should be followed by a comprehensive risk assessment of all strategic options, evaluating potential legal, financial, and reputational consequences. Seeking expert advice, particularly from legal and compliance departments, is crucial. Finally, decisions should be made based on a clear rationale that prioritizes long-term sustainability, ethical integrity, and strict adherence to the specified regulatory framework, even when faced with pressure for rapid results. Question 8. Regulatory review indicates that Midea is preparing to launch a new smart home appliance. Internal testing has identified a very low probability of a minor electrical anomaly that, in extremely rare circumstances, could cause a temporary disruption to other connected devices. While the anomaly poses no safety risk to users, it could be perceived as a product defect by some consumers. Midea's marketing team is concerned that disclosing this information might negatively impact the launch. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach for Midea to take regarding this potential issue? Option A. Proactively disclose the potential for a minor electrical anomaly and its implications to consumers in product documentation and marketing materials, emphasizing the extremely low probability and lack of safety risk. Option B. Rely solely on internal testing results and present the product as completely risk-free in all marketing and promotional activities. Option C. Withhold information about the potential anomaly unless specifically asked by a consumer or regulator, assuming that most consumers will not inquire about such technical details. Option D. Only mention the anomaly in the fine print of the user manual, making it difficult for the average consumer to find or understand. Correct answer is A. Proactively disclose the potential for a minor electrical anomaly and its implications to consumers in product documentation and marketing materials, emphasizing the extremely low probability and lack of safety risk. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a company's desire for positive public perception and the ethical obligation to disclose potentially negative information. Pressure to maintain a favorable image, especially in the context of a new product launch, can create a temptation to downplay or omit critical details that might deter consumers or investors. Careful judgment is required to balance commercial interests with transparency and integrity. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes accurate and complete disclosure, aligning with the principles of honesty and fairness expected of professionals. By proactively addressing the potential safety concern, even if it's a minor risk, the company demonstrates a commitment to consumer welfare and regulatory compliance. This builds long-term trust and credibility, which are invaluable assets. Ethically, it upholds the duty of care owed to customers and adheres to the spirit of regulations designed to protect the public from harm. An incorrect approach that involves withholding information about the potential safety issue is professionally unacceptable. This constitutes a failure to disclose material information, which can violate consumer protection laws and ethical codes. Such an action erodes trust and can lead to significant reputational damage, legal penalties, and financial losses if the issue later comes to light. It also demonstrates a lack of integrity and a disregard for the well-being of consumers. Another incorrect approach, which is to only disclose the information if directly asked, is also professionally flawed. While technically not an outright lie, it is a form of omission that fails to meet the standard of proactive transparency. This approach suggests an intent to mislead by omission, relying on the assumption that consumers may not ask the right questions. It falls short of the ethical imperative to provide all relevant information that a reasonable consumer would consider important in their decision-making. A third incorrect approach, which is to rely solely on internal testing without external validation, and then present the product as completely risk-free, is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Internal testing, while necessary, may have inherent biases. Presenting a product as entirely risk-free when there is a known, albeit minor, potential safety concern is misleading and can lead to consumer disappointment or harm. It violates the principle of truthfulness in advertising and marketing. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment, considering both the likelihood and severity of potential negative outcomes. Professionals should always err on the side of transparency and disclosure when there is any doubt about the material impact of information on stakeholders. Consulting with legal and compliance departments is crucial to ensure adherence to all applicable regulations. Ultimately, decisions should be guided by a commitment to ethical conduct, integrity, and the long-term sustainability of the organization's reputation. Question 9. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a compliance breach if a specific sales practice is continued, yet your direct manager instructs you to proceed with this practice, stating it is crucial for meeting quarterly targets. You are aware that this practice has been flagged internally as potentially problematic. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Proceed with the sales practice as instructed by your manager, assuming they have considered the risks. Option B. Directly refuse to implement the sales practice, citing your personal ethical reservations. Option C. Escalate your concerns through the company's designated compliance channels, providing all relevant details and documentation. Option D. Discuss the manager's instructions and your concerns with trusted colleagues to gauge their opinions. Correct answer is C. Escalate your concerns through the company's designated compliance channels, providing all relevant details and documentation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the conflict between a direct instruction from a superior and the employee's ethical obligation to report potential misconduct. The pressure to comply with a directive that may violate company policy or regulatory standards, coupled with the fear of reprisal, creates a complex ethical dilemma. The employee must balance loyalty to their manager with their responsibility to uphold integrity and compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves escalating the concern through the appropriate channels, such as the compliance department or a designated ethics hotline, while clearly documenting the situation. This upholds professional integrity by prioritizing ethical conduct and adherence to regulatory frameworks over direct orders that appear questionable. It demonstrates a commitment to transparency and accountability, which are fundamental to maintaining a trustworthy business environment and preventing potential legal or reputational damage for Midea. This aligns with the principles of good corporate governance and the expectation that employees will act ethically, even when faced with difficult circumstances. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to directly refuse the manager's request without any attempt to understand the underlying rationale or to escalate the issue. While the intention might be to avoid complicity, this can be perceived as insubordinate and may not effectively address the potential misconduct. It bypasses established reporting mechanisms and could lead to a breakdown in communication and trust within the team. Another incorrect approach is to proceed with the manager's request without raising any concerns, assuming the manager has a valid reason or that it is not the employee's place to question. This is a significant ethical failure, as it makes the employee complicit in any potential wrongdoing. It violates the principle of acting with integrity and can expose both the employee and Midea to severe regulatory penalties and reputational damage. It also undermines the effectiveness of internal controls designed to prevent misconduct. A third incorrect approach is to discuss the manager's request with colleagues informally, seeking their opinion or validation before taking any action. While seeking advice can be helpful, doing so outside of formal channels can lead to gossip, the spread of misinformation, and potential breaches of confidentiality. It does not constitute a formal reporting of the issue and may delay or prevent appropriate action from being taken by those responsible for investigating such matters. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such dilemmas should first attempt to understand the situation clearly. If a directive appears to conflict with ethical principles or company policy, the next step is to seek clarification from the manager, framing the concern as a desire to ensure compliance. If clarification does not resolve the issue, or if the manager insists on a questionable course of action, the professional should then utilize established internal reporting mechanisms, such as the compliance department or an ethics hotline. Documenting all interactions and decisions is crucial. This structured approach ensures that concerns are addressed appropriately, protects the individual from undue pressure, and upholds the organization's commitment to ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. Question 10. System analysis indicates that a product developed by Midea has a minor, but potentially concerning, defect identified during internal quality control. While the defect does not pose an immediate safety risk, it could lead to customer dissatisfaction and potential warranty claims in the future. Management is considering how to communicate this finding, with some advocating for a quiet recall and others suggesting a public announcement. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for Midea in this situation? Option A. Delay any public announcement or recall until a complete and permanent solution to the defect is developed and implemented, to avoid negative publicity and potential customer panic. Option B. Proactively communicate the identified product defect to all relevant stakeholders, including customers and regulatory bodies if applicable, and clearly outline the steps being taken to rectify the issue and mitigate any potential impact. Option C. Focus solely on the positive attributes of the product in all public communications and omit any mention of the identified defect, assuming it is minor and unlikely to cause significant issues. Option D. Inform only key stakeholders, such as major distributors and investors, about the defect and the planned corrective actions, while keeping the general customer base unaware until the issue is fully resolved. The correct answer is B. Proactively communicate the identified product defect to all relevant stakeholders, including customers and regulatory bodies if applicable, and clearly outline the steps being taken to rectify the issue and mitigate any potential impact. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a company's desire for positive public relations and the ethical obligation to disclose potentially negative information that could impact stakeholders. The pressure to present a favorable image can lead to a temptation to downplay or omit critical details, which directly clashes with principles of transparency and honesty. Careful judgment is required to balance business interests with the duty to act ethically and in accordance with regulatory expectations. The correct approach, which involves transparently communicating the identified product defect and outlining the corrective actions, represents best professional practice because it upholds the core ethical principles of honesty, integrity, and accountability. This aligns with regulatory frameworks that often mandate disclosure of material information that could affect investors, consumers, or other stakeholders. By proactively addressing the issue, the company demonstrates a commitment to customer safety and builds long-term trust, which is crucial for sustained business success. This approach also mitigates potential legal and reputational damage that could arise from a delayed or concealed disclosure. An incorrect approach that involves delaying the announcement until a complete solution is finalized, while seemingly prudent, fails to acknowledge the immediate risk to consumers and the potential for harm. This delay could be interpreted as a breach of duty to inform stakeholders of material risks, potentially violating consumer protection laws or disclosure requirements. Another incorrect approach, which is to only communicate the positive aspects of the product and omit any mention of the defect, represents a clear ethical failure of deception and a violation of the principle of full disclosure. This can lead to severe reputational damage, loss of customer trust, and significant legal repercussions. Finally, an approach that involves selectively informing only certain stakeholders, such as major investors but not the general public, is discriminatory and unethical. It creates an uneven playing field and suggests a prioritization of certain interests over others, which is contrary to principles of fairness and broad stakeholder responsibility. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical considerations and regulatory compliance. This involves identifying potential conflicts of interest, assessing the impact of decisions on all stakeholders, consulting relevant ethical codes and regulations, and seeking guidance from legal or compliance departments when uncertainty exists. The process should involve a thorough risk assessment of both taking action and not taking action, with a bias towards transparency and the protection of stakeholders when potential harm is involved. Question 11. Implementation of a new product launch is contingent on securing a significant contract with a major overseas client. During the final stages of product testing, a team member discovers a potential performance issue that, while not immediately catastrophic, could lead to customer dissatisfaction and potential safety concerns under specific operating conditions. The sales team is pushing to finalize the contract, emphasizing the substantial revenue and market share this deal represents, and suggests downplaying the issue or promising a quick fix post-contract signing. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Proceed with the contract, assuring the client that the issue is minor and will be addressed through a software update shortly after delivery. Option B. Inform senior management of the discovered issue and recommend delaying the contract signing until a comprehensive risk assessment and mitigation plan are in place. Option C. Immediately inform the client of the potential performance issue and propose a revised timeline for delivery after thorough investigation and resolution. Option D. Conceal the performance issue from the client to ensure the contract is signed and hope that the issue does not arise in practice. The correct answer is C. Immediately inform the client of the potential performance issue and propose a revised timeline for delivery after thorough investigation and resolution. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves a conflict between a company's immediate financial interests and its long-term ethical obligations to its stakeholders, particularly regarding product safety and transparency. The pressure to meet sales targets and secure a lucrative contract can create an environment where cutting corners on quality control or downplaying potential risks might seem appealing. However, such actions can have severe consequences, including reputational damage, legal liabilities, and most importantly, harm to consumers. Careful judgment is required to navigate this conflict by prioritizing ethical conduct and regulatory compliance over short-term gains. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes transparency and adherence to established quality control procedures, even if it means delaying a potentially profitable deal. This aligns with the Midea hiring assessment test's emphasis on ethical conduct and compliance with relevant regulations, assuming a hypothetical regulatory framework for this exam that mandates product safety and truthful representation. By raising concerns about the product's performance and advocating for thorough testing, the employee upholds their professional responsibility to ensure the product meets safety standards and that potential clients are not misled. This approach demonstrates integrity, builds trust, and ultimately protects both the company and its customers from future harm. It reflects a commitment to sustainable business practices over opportunistic gains. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves overlooking the quality control issues to secure the contract. This is ethically and regulatorily unsound because it prioritizes financial gain over product safety and honest representation. Such an action could lead to the distribution of a faulty product, resulting in consumer harm, significant legal repercussions for Midea, and severe damage to the company's reputation. Violates principles of due diligence and responsible corporate behavior. Another incorrect approach is to proceed with the contract but make vague promises about future improvements without addressing the current deficiencies. This is a form of deception. While it might temporarily appease the client, it fails to resolve the underlying product issues and still exposes Midea to risks if the product fails to perform as expected. It is a disingenuous tactic that erodes trust and is unlikely to be sustainable. A third incorrect approach is to unilaterally decide to withhold information from the client without consulting relevant internal stakeholders or seeking guidance. While the intention might be to avoid jeopardizing the deal, this lack of transparency and proactive communication is unprofessional. It bypasses established decision-making processes and could lead to misinformed choices that ultimately harm the company. Ethical conduct requires open communication and adherence to internal protocols when dealing with significant business decisions and potential risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such dilemmas should employ a structured decision-making process. First, identify the core ethical and regulatory principles at play. Second, gather all relevant facts and assess the potential consequences of each course of action. Third, consult internal policies, ethical guidelines, and, if necessary, legal counsel. Fourth, prioritize actions that uphold integrity, transparency, and the well-being of stakeholders. In this case, the professional should escalate their concerns through appropriate channels, advocate for rigorous testing, and ensure that any client engagement is based on accurate information about the product's current capabilities and limitations. Question 12. Quality control measures reveal that a batch of recently manufactured air conditioning units, intended for sale in the UK market, have a minor but consistent defect in their internal wiring insulation that could, under specific extreme conditions, pose a potential fire risk. The production line is under pressure to meet a significant quarterly sales target, and the defect was identified just before the scheduled shipment to a major distributor. The immediate financial implications of delaying the shipment or recalling the units would be substantial, potentially impacting bonuses and future orders. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Proceed with the shipment as planned, assuming the risk is minimal and that the defect is unlikely to cause any actual harm, and address any potential customer complaints on a case-by-case basis after sale. Option B. Inform the distributor about the defect, but suggest they accept the shipment with a significant discount, shifting the responsibility for identifying and rectifying the issue to them. Option C. Instruct the production team to discreetly attempt to repair the insulation on a sample basis before shipment, hoping the issue is not widespread and will not be detected by customers or regulatory bodies. Option D. Immediately halt the shipment of the affected batch. Formally report the defect to the relevant internal departments, e.g., quality assurance, legal, sales management, and initiate the process for a product recall or remedial action as per Midea's product safety and recall procedures, ensuring full compliance with UK consumer protection regulations. The correct answer is D. Immediately halt the shipment of the affected batch. Formally report the defect to the relevant internal departments, e.g., quality assurance, legal, sales management, and initiate the process for a product recall or remedial action as per Midea's product safety and recall procedures, ensuring full compliance with UK consumer protection regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it pits the immediate financial interests of the company against the long-term implications of ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. The pressure to meet sales targets and avoid penalties can create a conflict of interest, requiring an individual to prioritize integrity over short-term gains. Careful judgment is essential to navigate this situation without compromising ethical standards or violating Midea's internal policies and relevant industry regulations. The correct approach, which involves reporting the discrepancy immediately and transparently, represents best professional practice because it upholds the principles of honesty, accountability, and adherence to regulatory frameworks. By proactively disclosing the issue, the individual demonstrates a commitment to accurate reporting and customer trust, which are fundamental to Midea's reputation and long-term success. This aligns with the ethical imperative to act with integrity and to ensure that all business dealings are conducted in a fair and transparent manner, as expected by Midea's Code of Conduct and any applicable consumer protection laws. An incorrect approach of downplaying the issue or attempting to rectify it without formal reporting is professionally unacceptable. This would constitute a failure to comply with internal reporting procedures, potentially leading to inaccurate financial statements or product quality records. Such actions could also violate regulations concerning product safety and consumer rights, exposing Midea to legal repercussions and reputational damage. Furthermore, concealing such a discrepancy erodes trust within the organization and with customers, undermining the very foundation of ethical business operations. Another incorrect approach, that of blaming the supplier without investigating further or seeking internal guidance, is also professionally unsound. While supplier accountability is important, a responsible professional must first ensure internal processes are robust and that all facts are gathered before assigning blame. This approach neglects the company's own responsibility for quality assurance and due diligence in its supply chain management. It also fails to address the immediate issue of potentially substandard products reaching the market, which is a primary ethical and regulatory concern. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear framework. 1. Identify the ethical and regulatory implications. Recognize the potential harm to customers, the company, and stakeholders. 2. Consult internal policies and procedures. Refer to Midea's Code of Conduct, quality control manuals, and reporting protocols. 3. Seek guidance from appropriate channels. If unsure, consult with supervisors, the compliance department, or legal counsel. 4. Act with transparency and integrity. Prioritize honest and accurate reporting, even if it presents challenges. 5. Document all actions and communications. Maintain a clear record of the issue, the steps taken, and the decisions made. Question 13. The efficiency study reveals a significant improvement in production output, but also flags a small, recurring anomaly in the energy consumption data for a specific production line. The anomaly, while not immediately impacting overall profitability, suggests a potential inefficiency or equipment malfunction that is being masked by other factors. The team leader is keen to present the positive output figures immediately to senior management, suggesting the energy anomaly is minor and can be investigated later. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Acknowledge the energy anomaly, but suggest it is likely a minor calibration issue that will resolve itself with continued operation, and proceed with presenting the positive output. Option B. Immediately investigate the energy consumption anomaly to understand its root cause before presenting the study results, even if it delays the report. Option C. Focus solely on the positive output figures and omit any mention of the energy consumption anomaly to avoid complicating the presentation. Option D. Present the positive output figures as planned and make a brief, non-committal note about the energy anomaly to be addressed in a future report. The correct answer is B. Immediately investigate the energy consumption anomaly to understand its root cause before presenting the study results, even if it delays the report. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it pits the desire for immediate cost savings and improved operational metrics against the fundamental ethical obligation to maintain data integrity and transparency. The pressure to present favorable results to stakeholders, coupled with the temptation to overlook minor discrepancies, can lead to compromised decision-making. Careful judgment is required to balance efficiency goals with the imperative of accurate reporting. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes accuracy and integrity above all else. By meticulously investigating the discrepancies, even if they appear minor, the professional upholds the principles of honesty and accountability. This aligns with the Midea hiring assessment test's emphasis on ethical conduct and the importance of reliable data in business operations. It demonstrates a commitment to not only achieving efficiency, but doing so through legitimate and transparent means, fostering trust with colleagues and management. An incorrect approach that involves ignoring the discrepancies or downplaying their significance fails to acknowledge the potential for cumulative error or the underlying systemic issues that might be causing them. This could lead to misinformed strategic decisions based on flawed data, potentially causing greater financial or reputational damage in the long run. Such an approach violates the ethical principle of due diligence and could be seen as a breach of professional responsibility, as it prioritizes expediency over accuracy. Another incorrect approach, such as selectively reporting only the positive findings while omitting the anomalies, constitutes a form of data manipulation. This is a serious ethical lapse and a direct violation of principles of transparency and fairness. It misleads stakeholders and undermines the credibility of the efficiency study and the individual conducting it. This behavior could have severe consequences, including disciplinary action and damage to professional reputation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify the objective and the ethical principles at play. Second, gather all relevant information, including any anomalies or discrepancies. Third, analyze the potential impact of these discrepancies, considering both immediate and long-term consequences. Fourth, consult with relevant colleagues or supervisors if uncertainty exists. Finally, choose the course of action that upholds the highest ethical standards and ensures the integrity of the information being presented, even if it means delaying or revising initial findings. Question 14. Strategic planning requires a clear understanding of potential risks and opportunities. Imagine you are a Midea sales representative preparing a proposal for a major new client. During your final review, you discover a minor but potentially misleading data point in the technical specifications section that, if left uncorrected, could make your product appear more advanced than it currently is. The client is highly impressed with the current proposal, and correcting this data point might slightly diminish the perceived advantage, potentially impacting the deal's momentum. What is the most ethically and professionally sound course of action? Option A. Immediately correct the data point to ensure accuracy and inform the client of the correction, explaining it was an oversight. Option B. Proceed with the proposal as is, assuming the client will not scrutinize that specific detail closely and the minor inaccuracy will not cause significant issues. Option C. Subtly rephrase the technical specification to be less definitive, hoping the client interprets it favorably without explicitly stating the original inaccuracy. Option D. Ignore the discrepancy and hope that if it is discovered later, it can be explained away as a minor technicality. The correct answer is A. Immediately correct the data point to ensure accuracy and inform the client of the correction, explaining it was an oversight. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it pits the immediate financial benefit of a potential deal against the long-term ethical and regulatory obligations of the company. The pressure to secure a significant contract can lead to overlooking or downplaying potential ethical breaches. Careful judgment is required to balance business objectives with integrity and compliance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes ethical conduct and adherence to the Midea hiring assessment test's implied regulatory framework, which would likely emphasize honesty, transparency, and fair dealing. By seeking clarification and ensuring all information is accurate and verifiable, the employee upholds the company's reputation and avoids potential legal or reputational damage. This aligns with principles of good corporate governance and responsible business conduct, which are implicitly expected in any professional assessment. An incorrect approach that involves proceeding with the deal despite the known inaccuracies is a direct violation of ethical principles and likely regulatory guidelines concerning misrepresentation and fraud. This could expose Midea to significant penalties, contract invalidation, and severe reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the discrepancy and hope it goes unnoticed, is equally problematic. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a willingness to engage in potentially deceptive practices, undermining trust and professionalism. A third incorrect approach, which is to subtly hint at the inaccuracies without direct disclosure, is a form of passive deception. It attempts to skirt the edges of ethical behavior, but still fails to uphold the standard of full transparency and honesty required in professional dealings. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying potential ethical conflicts. They should then consult relevant company policies, codes of conduct, and any applicable regulatory guidelines. Seeking advice from supervisors or legal/compliance departments is crucial when in doubt. The ultimate decision should always prioritize integrity, transparency, and long-term sustainability over short-term gains. Question 15. Investigation of potential process optimizations within Midea's manufacturing workflow. A proposed change suggests reducing the inspection frequency of a critical component to decrease lead times and associated labor costs. This change is based on a recent, limited batch of components that showed a slightly lower than average defect rate. What is the most professionally responsible approach to evaluating and implementing this proposed optimization? Option A. Implement the reduced inspection frequency for a short period and then revert if any significant issues arise, prioritizing immediate operational adjustments over thorough upfront analysis. Option B. Approve the change based on the suggestion from the quality control team, assuming their expertise is sufficient to identify a valid optimization without further investigation. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive statistical analysis of historical defect data for the component. Perform pilot testing of the reduced inspection frequency on a controlled production run, and establish clear quality control metrics to monitor the impact before full-scale implementation. Option D. Immediately implement the reduced inspection frequency across all production lines to realize the cost savings and lead time improvements, as the recent batch indicates a trend towards higher quality. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive statistical analysis of historical defect data for the component. Perform pilot testing of the reduced inspection frequency on a controlled production run, and establish clear quality control metrics to monitor the impact before full-scale implementation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization within a regulated environment like Midea's operations, which are implicitly subject to general business ethics and potentially specific industry standards for efficiency and quality. The challenge lies in balancing the drive for cost reduction and efficiency gains with the imperative to maintain product quality, customer satisfaction, and adherence to any implicit or explicit operational standards. Hasty or poorly considered optimization could lead to unintended consequences, such as increased defect rates, longer lead times for certain components, or even safety concerns if not managed meticulously. Professional judgment is required to identify optimizations that are truly beneficial without compromising core operational integrity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven evaluation of the entire process, from raw material sourcing to final product delivery. This includes identifying bottlenecks, analyzing waste, time, materials, effort, and exploring alternative methodologies or technologies. Crucially, it necessitates pilot testing and phased implementation with robust monitoring and feedback mechanisms. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that changes are validated, risks are mitigated, and the impact on quality and customer experience is understood and managed. Ethically, this approach demonstrates a commitment to responsible business operations, prioritizing long-term sustainability and stakeholder trust over short-term, potentially detrimental gains. It also implicitly adheres to principles of due diligence and continuous improvement expected in any professional setting. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a change based solely on anecdotal evidence or a single department's suggestion without broader validation is professionally unsound. This approach risks overlooking critical interdependencies within the process, potentially leading to unforeseen negative impacts on other areas or product quality. It fails to meet the standard of due diligence and can be seen as negligent if it results in operational failures or customer dissatisfaction. Adopting an optimization strategy that prioritizes cost reduction above all else, without a thorough assessment of its impact on quality, reliability, or customer service, is also a significant professional and ethical failing. This can lead to a decline in product standards, damage to Midea's reputation, and potential breaches of customer trust or contractual obligations. It prioritizes a narrow financial metric over broader business integrity, focusing on optimizing only one isolated part of the process without considering its ripple effects on upstream or downstream activities is another flawed strategy. This siloed approach can create new bottlenecks or inefficiencies elsewhere, negating the initial gains and demonstrating a lack of holistic process understanding. It reflects poor strategic thinking and can lead to wasted resources and effort. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing process optimization challenges should adopt a structured analytical approach. This involves 1. Defining clear objectives and key performance indicators, KPI, for the optimization. 2. Mapping the current process in detail to understand all components and their interactions. 3. Identifying areas for improvement through data analysis, root cause analysis, and stakeholder input. 4. Developing potential solutions, considering their impact on quality, cost, time, and customer satisfaction. 5. Prioritizing solutions based on feasibility, potential impact, and risk assessment. 6. Implementing changes through controlled pilots and phased rollouts with continuous monitoring and feedback loops. 7. Regularly reviewing and refining the optimized process to ensure sustained benefits and adapt to changing conditions. Question 16. What factors determine the most effective and responsible approach to optimizing manufacturing processes at Midea, considering both efficiency gains and potential impacts on product quality and employee well-being? Option A. Relying on historical assumptions about process efficiency and making broad changes without validating them with current data or seeking input from those directly involved in the operations. Option B. The immediate reduction of labor costs through workforce downsizing and the introduction of the latest available automation technology, regardless of its integration complexity. Option C. A comprehensive analysis of current process performance data, direct engagement with operational staff for their insights, and a phased implementation strategy that includes pilot testing and continuous monitoring of key performance indicators. Option D. Prioritizing changes based on the loudest voices within the management team and implementing them rapidly to demonstrate quick results. The correct answer is C. A comprehensive analysis of current process performance data, direct engagement with operational staff for their insights, and a phased implementation strategy that includes pilot testing and continuous monitoring of key performance indicators. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization within a manufacturing environment like Midea. The core difficulty lies in balancing the immediate need for cost reduction with the long-term implications of process changes on product quality, employee well-being, and regulatory compliance. A hasty or poorly considered optimization can lead to unforeseen negative consequences, impacting customer satisfaction, brand reputation, and potentially incurring fines or legal action if regulatory standards are breached. The pressure to demonstrate quick wins can often overshadow the need for thorough analysis and stakeholder consultation, making professional judgment and a structured approach paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a holistic and data-driven methodology. It begins with a comprehensive understanding of the existing process, including its performance metrics, potential bottlenecks, and areas for improvement. This involves detailed process mapping, data collection on key performance indicators, KPI, such as cycle time, defect rates, and resource utilization, and crucially, engaging with the frontline employees who operate the process daily. Their insights are invaluable for identifying practical inefficiencies and potential risks associated with proposed changes. The optimization strategy should then be developed based on this empirical evidence, prioritizing changes that offer the greatest return on investment ROI, while minimizing disruption and ensuring adherence to all relevant quality standards and safety regulations. Pilot testing and phased implementation allow for continuous monitoring and adjustment, mitigating risks and ensuring the sustainability of the improvements. This approach aligns with best practices in operational excellence and responsible business conduct, ensuring that optimization efforts are both effective and ethically sound. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach focuses solely on reducing direct labor costs without considering the impact on process efficiency or quality. This can lead to understaffing, increased workload for remaining employees, and a higher likelihood of errors or defects, ultimately negating any cost savings through increased rework or customer complaints. This approach fails to consider the human element and the interconnectedness of process steps, potentially violating ethical considerations regarding employee welfare, and potentially leading to breaches of quality assurance regulations if product standards are compromised. Another incorrect approach prioritizes the adoption of new technology without a thorough assessment of its suitability or integration challenges. While technology can be a powerful tool for optimization, implementing it without understanding its impact on existing workflows, employee training needs, or compatibility with current systems can result in significant disruption, increased costs, and a failure to achieve the desired improvements. This can lead to regulatory issues if the new technology fails to meet established safety or environmental standards, or if its implementation leads to data security breaches. A third incorrect approach involves making changes based on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few individuals without rigorous data analysis. This can lead to implementing solutions that are not addressing the root cause of inefficiencies, or worse, introducing new problems. It bypasses the critical step of validating assumptions with data, which is fundamental to sound decision-making, and can lead to regulatory noncompliance if the changes inadvertently affect safety protocols or environmental impact assessments. Professional reasoning. professionals should adopt a systematic and evidence-based approach to process optimization. This involves 1. Defining the problem and objectives clearly, 2. Mapping and analyzing the current process to identify root causes of inefficiency, 3. Gathering comprehensive data on process performance, 4. Involving all relevant stakeholders, especially frontline staff, in the analysis and solution development, 5. Developing and evaluating potential solutions based on data, considering impact on quality, cost, safety, and employee well-being, 6. Prioritizing solutions based on potential ROI and risk assessment, 7. Implementing changes in a controlled manner with pilot testing and continuous monitoring, 8. Establishing mechanisms for ongoing review and continuous improvement. This framework ensures that optimization efforts are strategic, sustainable, and ethically responsible, aligning with both business objectives and regulatory requirements. Question 17. When evaluating potential process optimization strategies to increase production output for a key component, which approach best balances efficiency gains with adherence to Medea's quality control standards and regulatory compliance? Option A. Focus on reducing the number of inspection points in the assembly line to speed up the overall production flow, as fewer checks are likely to increase throughput. Option B. Prioritize implementing changes that have historically led to faster cycle times in similar manufacturing environments, assuming they will translate directly to improved output without extensive validation. Option C. Implement the most intuitive or commonly suggested process modifications immediately to demonstrate responsiveness to production demands, deferring detailed analysis and validation until after the changes are in place. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of the current process, identifying specific bottlenecks through data collection, and then proposing and testing targeted improvements that are rigorously assessed for their impact on quality and compliance before full rollout. The correct answer is B. Prioritize implementing changes that have historically led to faster cycle times in similar manufacturing environments, assuming they will translate directly to improved output without extensive validation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization within a regulated industry like Medea's, where efficiency gains must be balanced against strict adherence to quality and safety standards. The challenge lies in identifying improvements that genuinely enhance output without compromising the integrity of the manufacturing process or violating any established quality control protocols. The pressure to increase production volume can lead to shortcuts or overlooking critical steps, which could have significant repercussions. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a systematic, data-driven approach to process optimization. This means thoroughly analyzing existing workflows, identifying bottlenecks through objective metrics, and proposing changes that are validated through pilot testing or simulation. The focus should be on understanding the root cause of inefficiencies rather than implementing superficial fixes. This aligns with regulatory expectations that any process changes must be documented, assessed for impact on product quality and safety, and implemented in a controlled manner to ensure compliance with Medea's internal quality management systems and any relevant industry standards. Ethical considerations also demand that efficiency improvements do not lead to compromised product quality or worker safety. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or the perceived urgency of production targets without rigorous analysis poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. This approach can lead to unintended consequences, such as increased defect rates, failure to meet quality specifications, or even safety hazards, all of which could result in non-compliance with Medea's quality assurance policies and potentially external regulations. Another incorrect approach is to focus only on speed without considering the impact on the quality of the output. This disregards the fundamental principle that efficiency should not come at the expense of product integrity. Furthermore, making changes without proper documentation or validation bypasses essential control mechanisms, making it impossible to demonstrate compliance or to trace the source of any future issues. This lack of transparency and accountability is a direct violation of good manufacturing practices and ethical business conduct. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured problem-solving framework. This involves clearly defining the problem, gathering relevant data, analyzing the root causes, developing potential solutions, evaluating these solutions against defined criteria, including quality, safety, and efficiency, implementing the chosen solution in a controlled manner, and finally, monitoring and evaluating the results. This iterative process ensures that optimization efforts are effective, sustainable, and compliant. When faced with pressure for rapid improvement, it is crucial to communicate the importance of a thorough, compliant approach to stakeholders, emphasizing the long-term risks of hasty decisions. Question 18. The evaluation methodology shows a proposed change to a key manufacturing process aimed at reducing cycle time. While initial observations suggest potential efficiency gains, there is a concern that this change might impact the precision of a critical component assembly, potentially affecting product reliability and compliance with internal quality benchmarks. What is the most professionally sound approach to proceed? Option A. Postpone the change indefinitely due to the potential risk, prioritizing the status quo over any potential efficiency improvements. Option B. Rely on the experience of the production floor supervisor who believes the change will not negatively affect quality and proceed with a full rollout. Option C. Implement the change immediately to capture the cost savings and address any quality issues that arise reactively. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive pilot study of the proposed change in a controlled environment, collecting detailed data on cycle time, assembly precision, and defect rates before considering wider implementation. The correct answer is C. Implement the change immediately to capture the cost savings and address any quality issues that arise reactively. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization, where the drive for efficiency must be balanced with adherence to established quality and safety protocols. Professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing improvements without compromising the integrity of the product or the safety of operations, which are often governed by strict regulatory frameworks. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine process enhancements and shortcuts that could lead to non-compliance or product defects. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven, and compliant method for evaluating and implementing process changes. This involves rigorous testing, validation, and documentation, ensuring that any optimization aligns with Midea's internal quality standards and any applicable industry regulations. This methodical approach minimizes risk, promotes continuous improvement, and upholds the company's reputation for quality and reliability. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible innovation, where progress is achieved through controlled and validated steps. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering the impact on quality or regulatory compliance would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to the introduction of defects, customer dissatisfaction, and potential regulatory penalties. Another incorrect approach that bypasses established validation procedures, even if it appears to speed up implementation, introduces significant risk. It fails to provide assurance that the optimized process will consistently deliver the desired outcomes or meet required standards, potentially leading to product recalls or safety incidents. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few individuals, rather than objective data and systematic analysis, lacks the rigor necessary for effective and compliant process optimization. This can result in the adoption of ineffective or even detrimental changes. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the objectives, including efficiency gains, cost savings, and quality maintenance. This framework should then involve a thorough assessment of the current process, identification of potential improvement areas, and the development of specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound SMART objectives for the optimization. Crucially, any proposed changes must be evaluated against existing regulatory requirements and internal quality standards. Pilot testing, data collection, and validation are essential steps before full implementation. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are also vital to ensure sustained performance and to identify further opportunities for improvement. Question 19. Compliance review shows that the current order fulfillment process at Midea is experiencing delays, impacting customer satisfaction. A team is tasked with optimizing this process. Which of the following approaches best balances efficiency gains with regulatory adherence and ethical considerations? Option A. Expedite the implementation of proposed efficiency improvements to quickly address customer complaints, deferring a comprehensive compliance check until after the changes are live. Option B. Implement changes based on a competitor's successful optimization strategy, assuming similar outcomes will be achieved without a detailed internal review. Option C. Conduct a thorough analysis of the existing process, identifying specific bottlenecks and inefficiencies. Propose and pilot changes that are rigorously assessed for their impact on compliance with Medea's internal policies and relevant external regulations before full-scale implementation. Document all steps and outcomes. Option D. Make immediate adjustments to the process based on the suggestions of the most vocal team members, without formal documentation or broader consultation. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough analysis of the existing process, identifying specific bottlenecks and inefficiencies. Propose and pilot changes that are rigorously assessed for their impact on compliance with Medea's internal policies and relevant external regulations before full-scale implementation. Document all steps and outcomes. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between achieving efficiency gains through process optimization and maintaining compliance with established regulatory frameworks. The pressure to demonstrate tangible improvements can lead to overlooking critical control points or the potential for unintended consequences that could violate Medea's internal policies or external regulation. Careful judgment is required to balance the pursuit of optimization with the non-negotiable requirement of adherence to all applicable rules and guidelines. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing changes that are evaluated for their impact on compliance and risk. This aligns with best professional practice by ensuring that any optimization effort is grounded in a thorough understanding of the current state and a proactive assessment of potential compliance implications. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible innovation, where efficiency is pursued without compromising the integrity of operations or regulatory standing. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of introducing new vulnerabilities or violating Medea's established operational and ethical standards. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or the perceived success of similar initiatives elsewhere without a thorough, context-specific analysis is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses the due diligence required to ensure that proposed optimizations do not inadvertently create non-compliance issues or introduce new risks. This approach is professionally unacceptable because it relies on assumptions rather than evidence, potentially leading to breaches of internal controls or external regulations. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of implementation over comprehensive risk assessment. This can lead to the adoption of optimized processes that, while appearing efficient, may have overlooked critical control points or data security measures, thereby exposing Midea to regulatory penalties or reputational damage. This haste demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility and a disregard for the potential negative consequences of poorly vetted changes. Furthermore, making changes without proper documentation and stakeholder consultation is a failure. Regulatory frameworks often mandate clear audit trails and evidence of decision-making processes. The absence of documentation hinders accountability and makes it impossible to demonstrate compliance if audited. It also risks alienating key personnel, whose buy-in is crucial for successful and compliant implementation. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing process optimization challenges should adopt a structured decision-making process. This begins with a clear definition of the problem and objectives, followed by a comprehensive analysis of the current process, including its compliance aspects. Potential solutions should be brainstormed, and each should be rigorously evaluated for its efficiency benefits, potential risks, and compliance implications. The chosen solution must be supported by data and a clear rationale, with a plan for implementation that includes robust testing, documentation, and stakeholder communication. Continuous monitoring and review are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. Question 20. Market research demonstrates that Medea's current product assembly process has several manual steps that contribute to longer lead times. To improve efficiency, a proposal suggests replacing these manual steps with automated machinery. However, this automation would require significant upfront investment and a reduction in the number of assembly line workers. Considering the need for process optimization, which of the following actions best represents a responsible and effective approach? Option A. Immediately approve the automation proposal to reduce labor costs and speed up production, as this is the most direct path to efficiency. Option B. Implement the automation with a phased approach, focusing first on the steps with the highest labor cost and address any quality or workforce issues as they arise. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of the entire assembly line, including the impact of automation on product quality, worker retraining needs, and potential long-term operational costs before making a decision. Option D. Outsource the manual assembly steps to a third-party vendor to reduce internal labor costs and free up capital for automation investment. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of the entire assembly line, including the impact of automation on product quality, worker retraining needs, and potential long-term operational costs before making a decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization, where immediate cost savings might conflict with long-term strategic goals and regulatory compliance. The professional challenge lies in balancing efficiency gains with the potential for unintended consequences, such as compromising product quality or customer satisfaction, which could lead to regulatory scrutiny or reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to ensure that optimization efforts are sustainable and aligned with Midea's overall business objectives and ethical standards. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a holistic review of the entire value chain before implementing changes. This involves a thorough understanding of current processes, identifying bottlenecks, and evaluating potential solutions against multiple criteria, including efficiency, cost, quality, customer impact, and regulatory adherence. By engaging cross-functional teams and seeking stakeholder input, this approach ensures that optimization is data-driven, well-considered, and minimizes risks. This aligns with principles of good corporate governance and responsible business conduct, which are implicitly expected in any professional assessment, including the Midea hiring assessment test, by demonstrating a commitment to thoroughness and risk mitigation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing labor costs by automating a customer service function without considering the impact on customer experience or data privacy would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to regulatory breaches if customer data is mishandled or if service levels fall below industry standards, potentially triggering investigations by consumer protection agencies or data protection authorities. Another incorrect approach, such as implementing a new inventory management system that bypasses established quality control checks to speed up delivery, risks product defects and potential recalls, which could result in significant financial penalties and damage to Midea's brand reputation, violating principles of product safety and quality assurance. A third incorrect approach, which involves streamlining the supply chain by cutting corners on supplier audits, could lead to the use of substandard components or unethical labor practices, exposing Midea to reputational damage and potential legal liabilities if these issues come to light. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the objectives of the process optimization. This should be followed by a comprehensive analysis of the current state, identifying key performance indicators and potential areas for improvement. Next, various potential solutions should be brainstormed and evaluated based on their feasibility, impact on efficiency, cost-effectiveness, quality, customer satisfaction, and regulatory compliance. Risk assessment should be an integral part of this evaluation. Finally, the chosen solution should be implemented with a robust monitoring and feedback mechanism to ensure its effectiveness and allow for adjustments as needed. This systematic and risk-aware approach ensures that optimization efforts are strategic, ethical, and contribute positively to the organization's success.